How hard did you push it? Till I black out? Yes. Numerous times, yes.
What's happening, Municipals? This is your boy Big C, solo pod with my coach, the man of the Pacific Northwest, strictly Portland. Controls a little bit more of that. We'll get into that. Head director for X Golf here in Tualatin. Also head director for multiple of the locations. We'll get into that as well. The person I see when I feel horrible about myself and my swing. Also, you guys know Bean Mace, regular on this podcast, also sees Andy as well. Bean's the man.
Yeah.
But want to introduce everybody to my guy, Andy Morris. What's happening, buddy?
What's going on, man? Thanks for having me on. This is going to be a bunch of fun.
Yeah, it's going to be a good time.
Yeah.
So,
been waiting for this moment. I'm excited.
Yeah, we've been working together for a while,
Yeah.
People have heard me talk about you on the pod.
Mm-hmm.
They've heard Bean talk about you on the pod. But we wanted to get an episode together.
Yeah, man.
And our big thing today, I think, is going to be, everybody that listens to us knows our big goal is to start playing at a high level, getting back to what I used to be at, and really playing at a competitive level. And I think there's certain tools that everybody should have that will get them there or accelerate you to get there.
Absolutely.
So that's what the pod's going to be about. It's going to be about, playing competitive and how we're going to get there and how people can kind of find those people in their lives to, get them in those positions. But before we get there, I want people to kind of know a little bit about you, Andy, a little bit of background, where you started, how long you've been playing golf, favorite course locally, favorite course you've played.
Ooh. Okay. Let's start with the easy one. So, yeah, picked up a golf club when I was 3, I think legend has it, hearing that from the parents. Got a little plastic set in the backyard and would hit for hours, apparently. Keep myself busy as a 3-year-old. So, started there, and funny enough, I played baseball. Pretty much golf and baseball were the two main sports I played all the way through high school. But at high school, I had to pick golf or baseball, same season. And, I thought I was hot shit and going to go play college baseball. So I was like, oh, baseball it is, and put golf to the wayside for a minute. But yeah, started at 3 years old, played, and then obviously got into this industry, which we'll talk about a little bit after that. But favorite course, what'd you say, favorite course local to Portland? Honestly, I find myself always wanting to go back and play Stone Creek. You ever go play out there?
I love Stone. We've done a whole lot on Stone Creek out here.
That's right.
We like Stone a lot.
It's such a good layout.
I'm not a Peter Jacobson design fan. I roast Peter a lot on this podcast, but I think that course is 85% very good.
It's very good, and I obviously know which 15% you're talking about.
There's 2 holes. Nobody likes them.
I haven't. For me, the jury's still out on whether I really like those holes or really hate them. It's because I haven't played there a ton. I played there 3 or 4 times probably.
I think it's how far you hit it, because on 14, it's really more strategic. You almost want to take an iron off the tee on that down into the goalie.
Yeah.
But if you're a guy that can carry it 280, 15 really isn't a hard hole, because you can carry the ravine and be totally fine.
I guess it depends. What tees you playing?
That's the other thing too, and where they're positioning the tee box. But
and it's blind.
If you're a big boy hitter, I mean, I don't like a hole that forces people to like hit exact same shot every single time.
I definitely agree with that statement. They do drive me crazy. That's why I don't know that hole. I think it's not even listed as the hardest hole in that golf course, which is insane.
No, that's absolutely insane. Yeah, if you ever play match play there, it's annoying because you get to those holes and nobody strokes on them, and you're like, this is stupid.
Yeah, let's just go to let's go to 15, 16, whatever's next. But I
Well,
do
and
like
then
that track though.
Stone Creek is always in good shape.
Hmm.
It's a good cost for what you get. I mean, the people that work there are really nice. I think all around. I mean, you're not going to get any thrills when you come into the pro shop or go to the little snack shack. I mean,
Right.
it's bare bones. They got what they need,
Hmm.
and
That's
that's
what I
it.
love about
But
it.
Max facility too.
That's what they've done really well. Is like you said, there's no thrill, there's no oh my god, you got to go check out the clubhouse, which is fine. I mean, 99 times out of 100 when we're playing golf, it's like I want to check in, I want to go warm up, and I want to go to the first tee, and that's exactly what they are.
Yeah,
Yeah, grass range in the nicer months and little short game area, which is nice, and but the golf course, even I played a few weeks ago. I mean, not bone dry, but pretty close considering the time of year. So they do pretty
it
well.
it's dry for the winter.
Yep.
It's dry for our conditions. I mean, it's still
Yeah.
going to be wet for most people out of the area, but it's playable enough to get out there after a couple days of letting it dry out.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So let's see. That
Well,
was
favorite course you've ever played
favorite
anywhere?
ever. Am I allowed to have a toss up?
You can. You told me about a fun. I don't think it'll be your favorite, but you told me about a fun, weird one you played on your honeymoon.
Oh, oh yeah. That may not breach the top three of my favorite ever. We'll make it super quick for the listeners. That got to play golf. You could call it golf, I think. Yeah, we'll call it golf. There's golf clubs and golf balls involved. I played I played a 6-hole golf course in Croatia, and it was in their second largest city, and it's the only golf course in that city, and it's I think one of 5 or 6 courses in the entire country, and all the other courses are in their capital city, which is their largest, which is like 5.5 hours from where we were. And it was crazy, dude. It was off of the little main highway, take a right, no street sign, just literally I it might be metal, but it also could have been cardboard that said golf with like an arrow this way. And we were just like, oh shit.
All
We
right.
turn, gravel road, 20-foot ditch on the right, little donkey by himself in a pasture on the left, another sign, golf this way. We're just like, the wife's going, where are you taking me? I'm like, I don't know. We're in Croatia. None of us know where we're going. But I really want to play. I wanted to say I could play, and we get there. The people were super nice, and you can tell it's a community a small community of people that are trying to probably keep the game alive. They probably played it, I'm assuming, somewhere else, and we're like,
Yep.
I think we can do this back home. And the golf course is in really rough shape. You guarantee they don't have the equipment to take care of it, and maybe not the knowledge, but they love the game, and they're like, we're going to make this work. And it's 6 holes, I think. Hole number 3, I think it was hole number 3 or 4, is the driving range. So like if there are people hitting, there's a rule: the people on the range have to stop. The people on the course have to right away. And so like, yeah. Luckily, when we went, no one was on the range. I think we were the only people on the course that day for sure. But
That's
anyway,
cool though.
long explanation. I think that story's hilarious, but long
No, that's
explanation. Got to play golf in Croatia, but does not quite crack the top top course ever played.
there might not be that might be the reason there's not a lot of PGA pros coming out of Croatia.
Yeah, it's just the air.
The game it seems like it even in the biggest city it's probably still on the more elitist side.
100%. We didn't get to visit that, but that would make total sense because there's like 4 or 5 golf courses there, and that's it, right? That the rest of the country literally does not have a golf course
That's
and a driving range. And so, I mean, don't quote me on that. I didn't research every little thing about Croatia, but essentially that's what I learned. And um, yeah, so to be able to play it, it was cool. And they had
that's
everything measured in meters, and I had rental set. Obviously, I didn't bring my clubs for the old 6-holer. So it was fun. It was a blast. But
oh, and I'm sure the rental set was primo too.
you know what? Honestly, better than you would have thought. I can't remember. I want to say I had like a Cobra 5 wood or something as my driver. But it was Cobra. I was expecting a name that I'd never heard of before, and
Or just
rusted
something
out.
with
And yeah,
yeah,
no, they actually did a great job putting it together. I'll give them that.
that's crazy.
Yeah. Okay. Without trying to name drop too much, golf course. I mean, I was lucky enough to have a friend working for Pasatiempo in Santa Cruz. You ever get out there?
So again, that is top three of all of our favorite
It
courses. I
is
mean, every
just,
single one of us on the pod have played it.
yeah.
Um, it, I mean, have you played it after the renovation yet? They just
Uh,
renovated it last year.
no, because I played 6, 7 years ago, I think it was.
So
So I
I
remember what they do. I forgot what they were going to do to that place.
So again, don't quote me. It was a back nine that they renovated, and basically they were bringing it back to the original design. Because over the years, when you sand greens and plug them, and you do maintenance over the years, things start building up, and then you're losing undulation, and you're not. It's not the same, and everything kind of just gets out of whack. So basically, they were just redoing the bunkering,
Okay.
bringing down the greens, really just bringing it back to what the original design was in the
Okay.
1930s.
Yeah,
Um, and from what I've heard, it's spectacular,
I'm
but it's
sure.
not fully grown in yet.
Oh, it's
Um,
still making its way back.
yeah, I mean, Santa Cruz is tough
It is.
because
That's true.
new stuff, it's just moist and
Yep.
it doesn't get sunlight as much as other parts of the bay. So it takes a little bit longer out there, but
It
with the
makes sense.
money and
Yeah.
backing they have, it's going to get
I
there.
think their
Uh,
budget's fine. Yeah.
but Postiamo's
It
incredible.
just was. It was such a good time, and every hole you're just looking back right after you play. You're like, okay, I'm gonna remember that one because it was just so sweet. Um, yeah. So I let's put that at the top. Yeah.
All right, I like it.
There we go.
Um, so tell people a little bit about what you're doing now,
Yeah.
and kind of where you started in your teaching career.
Yeah. For sure. So director of instruction right now for X Golf. So the ownership group right now we have three specific to us. So that's Tualatin, Oregon, Beaverton, Oregon, and Vancouver, Washington. And so my job is strictly just uh, hiring and training and running instructional programs. That's all I ever wanted to do anyway. Well, it took me a minute to find that out, but once I found that out, that's all I want to do. And it's either that or completely change industries. I don't think I can do anything else in this industry personally. Um, so that's what I do now. I have my own clientele that I run, but also I have other coaches that I'm working with, and we're getting them up to speed and getting their books full, and kind of have a little 3 academy little system here. So that's where we're at right now. But that all started when I went to PGA school. So you guys probably know, I'm not sure about your listeners, but I'm a PGA professional. And to get to that point, there's essentially two ways to get there. It's the apprenticeship program where someone who wanted to start would have to, like, say, come work for me. I'm an established PGA pro already. They could work for me. They do their book work on the side. I help them through it, and they can become PGA certified that way. The other way is the university route, and that's the one that I took back in 2011 was my first year in a 4-year program, and that was at the University of Colorado. So spent 4 years ripping that out. It's hard, man. People don't really realize, like, we're not just there to show up and kind of, hit golf balls every day. It's like,
Yeah,
we have golf class that we have to go to for hours. And we also are getting a normal degree at the same time. So I have my business degree classes that I'm doing every day, and then an extra golf class or two every day. So kind of like a double major, like a major and a half probably. But so that was just to get the foot in the door and try to, wet your toes on what do you think you might want to do in this industry. And I I had weird plans. Like my first year, I'm like, okay, head pro for sure. That's what I want to do, head pro. And you know what? I like growing grass, so I think I want to maybe do like a split, like a head pro and this. That's what I'm thinking. Like my
and
first year going in, and then I'm like, and then I start working at a golf course, and I was a baseball player, so I was out of the game for a while. I still always played, but was focused on baseball for a long time. And so when I made that decision, I was like, oh man, the people running the greens crew, they're there at like 3:30, 4 in the morning. That's when they're there. I'm like, I don't know if I want to do that, you know? I was like, okay,
Yeah.
head pro, that seems like the end all be all from what I can tell. And then you go to school and then you go work at another golf course for a year. And then you're like, wait, what does a head pro have to do? They're also there early. They're also there really
And how much?
late. And what? Sorry.
And how much do they make?
Yeah, that was the ultimate kicker, to be totally honest. I was like,
Yeah.
unless you're the head pro at Pasatiempo or courses of the like, you're a grinder, man. You're a 6 day minimum a week. And if you're lucky at a decent public facility, it's 50, 40, 50. You know,
Yep.
the big name places, sure, they get a big paycheck, but you're working 60 hours a week for $40,000. I was like, that's not sustainable. I will, and
Nope.
then we wonder why there's so many pros that come in and go out, come in and go out. So I was like, not head pro, huh? GM? Well, I probably had to be a head pro for a while if I wanted to be a GM. It's like, that doesn't sound very fun. And I'm figuring this all out right about my end of my freshman year. Um, and I was like, well, geez, I've taken a couple golf lessons. Those are all fucking over $100 an hour. It's like, they must be doing okay, you
Doing
know?
all right.
Yeah, they must be doing all right. Let's think about that. Um, and then I mean, I'd always helped friends and stuff like that because I knew just a little bit more than them. So I was like, I mean, I feel like I'm good at getting the message across of what they should work on, you know? And then bam, I was like, you know what? I think teaching, that's what I want to do for sure. And then basically from my sophomore year through my senior year, I was trying to gear everything I do towards like how do people learn? How do I learn how to become a coach? What do I need to do? Because the program is built to do a bunch of stuff.
Yeah.
But early on, I knew I was like, no, I want to be a coach. So I still had to go through the motions of learning all the other stuff and trying to experience the other stuff. Well, deep down, I'm like, I'm ready to coach. I want to coach 12 hours a day, you know? So graduated in 2015. So yeah, we're going on year 10 this year of being a PGA professional and coaching full time. So yeah,
Well, I think your career path went the right way. I think you
yeah.
chose right.
Thank you. Yes.
Um, I mean, the one thing, I started following you on social media first.
Yeah, you were in California still, right?
Yep,
Yeah.
yep. I started following you on social media, and then I moved up here, started working with Club
Mm-hmm.
Champion, and then I finally reached out to you because we were doing we were doing the PGA partner program.
Mm-hmm.
But I was also,
You were like,
selfishly looking for a coach as
yeah, you're
well.
like, I need a set of eyes. Yeah.
And, from past experiences in playing at a high level at certain parts in my life, I've known certain things that I look for in coaches. And I think the first time I went to you, we didn't even really do a lesson. We were chatting about the PGA partner program, but then, I hit a couple balls and you kind of were like, yeah, there's some things that we need to touch up here,
Sure.
you
Yeah.
know, and what I liked about it is, you have a systematic way of getting somebody to the place that they need to be. It's not, let's start you all over and this
Yeah.
is one swing that's going to work for everybody and this is how I teach. If you don't like it, get the fuck away.
Yeah.
That that's not how you go about it. And I've appreciated that with myself, but with the partnership that we've kind of created, I think it's worked really well on
Yeah.
both sides of things with customers of mine and then also with clients of yours.
Absolutely, man. It's been fun, honestly.
Yeah.
It's been fun.
And so I think that's the big thing that we kind of want to dive in and kind of, all the listeners, I really want, if you guys are thinking about playing competitively, you hear me and Ashton talk about it all the time, and Jack is starting to play competitively. And, our whole crew, there's 6 of us, and we
Yeah.
all want to play at a competitive level. Pax played D3 golf for one of the schools here in Portland at George Fox.
Oh,
So,
cool.
we've got some guys that have played competitively, but we all get to a level of, life has gotten in the way. We've, had responsibilities that have taken away, but we're kind of all at that point where we can dedicate some time and effort to get ourselves back in that position.
Yeah, that's
So,
awesome.
with what you've seen with your clients and with the people that you work with, I mean, you work with people of all levels and all skills.
Yeah.
Literally guys that are just learning how to play the game
Mm-hmm.
to college kids and people that are really trying to make it in golf playing.
Yep.
What would you say if you're going about this and you're literally starting over from scratch and you've been playing a while, but it's kind of like, let's get back into it.
Mm-hmm.
Where would you start? What's the most important couple things that anybody should think about doing when they're starting that journey?
Man, it's a good question. So there's a few answers. We'll not bore them to death here, but you want to take a realistic view of where you're at today, and that's where you got to check your equipment. Like, is it from 1987? We should probably take a look at that. But what's your ability level as far as making clean contact, controlling it? Where are you at? And it could be a handicap. Maybe you've been playing enough rounds where you actually have a true handicap. But being very realistic with where you're at. That's one thing I think almost every person I've ever had to work with is, okay, that's my job, is to just tell it to you straight. Here's where you're at. It's always in a kind manner, but we're going to let you know. And it's figuring out what type of competition are you here to play. Are you a youngster that is maybe thinking college golf one day, or are you 10 years into your career and you're just like, look, it'd be nice to go play in some events nearby that are all handicapped. Like, that's still competition golf, even if it's handicapped. Is that the kind of person you think you're asking about right now?
So for us, I think most of us are 8 handicaps or below.
Okay.
Ashton's probably the lowest handicap out of all of us, or him and Jack's getting down there as well.
Mm-hmm.
But Jack's newer to the game. I think there's a lot for him in the competitive side that he'll probably learn over time on the mental, and kind of being able to get into that state
Mm-hmm.
to play competitively. But, Ashton and Jack are all under threes.
Oh, fantastic.
I haven't played a whole lot, so
Mm-hmm.
I've gone from a 4 to a 7.
Okay.
It's slid the back way for
Hey.
me over the last few years. And Pax is improving over time, and then our other 2 guys are hovering right around 5. So the people that listen to this pod or will listen to this pod are probably going to be under that handicap. But again, we want everybody listening to this pod of all different levels. If you want to play competitively, I think this is all going to be something that'll work for you as well. But
it definitely will.
I think conversation will probably tune a little bit more towards the 8 handicaps and below, where I think they're at the level of where there's certain things that are probably not clicking, or there's certain things they need to attack to continue that level of decrease in their handicap.
Yeah, for sure. I was thinking while you were talking there, I was like, so let's say it's the 8 handicapper, 8, 9. And the short answer that no one wants to hear is you need to have an elite short game. Straight up. If you never came to see me or anyone about your swing, if you never saw Chris about some new clubs, if you can get up and down from anywhere, you by default will pretty much shoot in the 70s. Unless you're just off the planet with every other club, which is not likely. It's obviously possible, but it's not likely. Now, that's the short answer that no one wants to hear, right? The longer answer, I would say, is like, okay, I want to be competitive. I want to get to a low single digit scratch. Yeah, I mean, it's all inclusive. I think to get to the scratch or better, I think it's kind of asinine when I hear coaches say, like, oh, you just got to do this. Add 15, 20 yards your drive. Boom, you're there. Whatever it is. Like, it's not one thing. It's really not. And hopefully it doesn't scare people away, but
golf is never one thing, though. And
it never will be.
One thing right, another thing falls off. So you're never 100% where you need to be.
Mm-hmm.
There's always going to be 25% that is falling off at any time.
Yep.
And it's like reeling that in to try to get to 85% for that round so you could shoot your best.
Totally, man. And that'll just be the case forever.
Yeah.
The other thing that I'm getting better about with some of my higher level players, I'm even not even high level. I mean, almost anyone who takes the game seriously,
Yeah.
is data. That's where we're at, because over 10 years of coaching, I haven't counted them all, but I've worked with well over 1,000 people. I've taught almost 10,000 lessons. And with every single one of them, I do a process, the intake process. When you come meet me for the first time, you're going to be hitting balls, but I'm going to be drilling you with questions. And for the first half of my career, it was like, hey, what do you shoot? Hey, what's your up and down percentage? Hey, how many fairways around do you hit? And what I found was people don't keep track, and that's fine. But they would try to make up an answer because I asked them, and I think they felt like they needed to know, and they were letting me down that they didn't know or something. And I'd get some answers. What's your up
Well,
and down percent? And they'd be like, probably like 6, 7 times out of 10. I'm like, oh, so you're like one of the leaders on the PGA Tour,
yeah.
and how many fairways per hit? Well,
It's the
definitely
same
half, maybe more than half.
It's the same people that come in and I go, what do you average off the tee?
Oh
And
man,
they're like 260 to 280.
yeah,
And then I get them on TrackMan and they're averaging 230,
235.
235.
Yeah,
And you're like, they try to blame it on TrackMan that they're not warmed up. And it's just like, I'm going to tell you right now, my man, I've been doing this for a long time.
yep,
You're not going to gain 30 yards by getting warmed up. Like, that's
yep,
just not how this works.
nope.
But it's the same kind of line.
Mm-hmm. And so it's just so that was like the first half, as I would ask them. Second half, I was like, tell me what you shoot, because that's the most accurate they'll be. That the most accurate, and most of them still are not accurate, right? Because they have the gimmies, they have the random drops. Anyway, that's okay. I don't care if you're one of those people. Have fun. Um, but that's the most accurate thing. And so now I have a whole data sheet that tells me, hey, you shoot between whatever 80 and 90 across the average golfer in the 80 to 90 range. Here's how many fairways, greens, putts, up and downs they have, and how far they hit off the tee. So then I would tell them this is where you're at, unless you have data to prove otherwise. So that's made it way more realistic right off day one. We don't waste time with what we're working on, because they might come to me most commonly, oh, my driver, I hit my driver. I don't hit it far enough and I slice it. Okay, I get that. I know it's going to hurt you. But according to the data, it looks like the biggest jump you could make, the fastest, is in maybe your ball striking. You don't hit enough greens. I understand some of those are due to being out of bounds off the tee, but the other ones where you are hitting the fairway or you're just in the rough, you're still missing those greens, and we can't have that. Or it's the putting from inside of 6 feet.
Yep.
So that's long-winded to say, like, get the data. So something like an Arcos, something that'll tell you, not, it doesn't go off what you feel like you did. It tells you what you did, and it really helps people like myself. Helps me help
And
you.
I think that just is step one.
Totally.
Honest
Yeah.
in reality with where you're at in your game. Because if you're lying to yourself
Yep.
and you're lying to the person that's trying to help you, you're never going to get better.
Yep.
Ever.
Revolving door. Yep.
You just have to admit where you're at. I was a 2 handicap at one point scratch golfer.
Yep.
I am 7 now. I
Yep.
know where I'm at. I know what I need to do, and I know my mistakes. And I think that's me and you working together. It's a little bit different, than some other,
Yeah. You're
newer
super
golfers.
experienced. Yeah.
I'm experienced, and then I'm also just going to be blunt and honest with myself. Like,
Yep.
I'm not going to ever, say I'm going to outdrive anybody, or, that certain parts of my game are elite beyond anybody else. Like,
Right.
things have fallen off,
Right.
and I need to get them back on track.
Right.
And so that's what I am working on this year, is being honest with myself and knowing where I need to start and creating a game plan to get there.
Yep.
So I think that's number one for everybody, being honest with you and finding a person that you can help work on that. But I think the leading into that, if you're dead serious about it and you're in a position where you're honest with the person that you found to help you, then I think it's creating a team.
Yeah.
And I think that's super important. And your team doesn't have to be deep,
No.
but it just depends on the level that you're going to put into it.
100%. And I think
You
that
know,
that'll come from the honesty part of where you figure out where you're at
yeah.
and where you want to go with it. And, and there's always initial goals too, right? It's not like, oh my God, I gotta go see if I can go for the, US Open qualifier. It's like, well, hang on, you're a 12 handicap. So let's just try to go to a local event. So anyway, but yeah, so the team thing I think is super smart. And I think all my students and your clients and all the crossover we have, I think they would all agree. I don't think any of them would be like, oh man, I shouldn't have got those sessions from Andy. I think I should have just stopped at the clubs, or vice versa.
well, and there's times where, I'm gonna, this is a higher handicap level usually for us, but there's times where guys are gonna come in and see me, and I can't do anything until they do go and see someone like yourself,
Mhm.
get them to a level where what I do is going to maximize what their capability is in their new equipment.
Yeah.
So that's for more of our higher level guys, but I think if you're going to create the minimal team, it would be definitely a swing coach and a good fitter
Yeah.
that you're going to be able to go to for anything. Because that's the one thing. It's like not going to your local golf galaxy, not going to, your mom and pop shop that just sells stuff off the rack.
Right.
It's if you're going to play at an elite level, I promise you're not going to ever find any kid that's playing at an elite level at a state amateur level or at a D1 school that hasn't been fitted and that hasn't seen a coach.
Yep.
Promise you will not find
Yeah.
that kid.
They're the 0.0001. They're the Bubba Watsons of the world.
Yeah.
You know.
And there's two guys, Jim Furyk and Bubba Watson, that I can name that made PGA pros that did not go those routes.
Right. Right. Who'd
But
never.
the
Yeah.
majority,
So.
yeah.
But yeah,
And so
you're totally right.
I think finding a coach, and I think so. I want your insight on this. So when you're seeking out a coach, I know what I look for because I've had plenty of coaches in my past. But when someone's new or maybe has been self-taught and they've reached that plateau of
Mhm.
that 7-8 handicap and they just can't breach that, what would you give them when they're starting to reach out to PGA pros and trying to find that person? What would be the insight that you'd give somebody to look for? Because
Yeah.
just as much as I do, there are great PGA pros and there are PGA pros that'll turn you into Charles Barkley.
Yes, there are. Yeah, man. That's a really good question. I think this is going to be super valuable for the listeners. I don't have any like super stringent, strict rules like they got to say this or they can't say this and run away. Um, but uh, um, as long as they are taking their time and getting to know you and truly trying to figure out where you are, here's the time maybe where you can pretty safely run away from that lesson is if you're less than 5 swings in and they've got you trying 3 or 4 things. That's when it's just like, hey, you're there, you got to pay the guy, for the time and just say thanks, but no thanks, because that is someone, in my opinion, who is not experienced and doesn't have your best interests at heart. They're doing it for vanity. They want to get you hitting it in the air right away perfectly so they can feel good. That's my opinion. Maybe it's a little harsh, but um, yeah, if you're trying 3 drills and you've been there for 8 minutes, that's no go because there's no way there's enough time for them to get to know you, figure out what it is you even want to do with golf lessons. They're looking at your swing twice and saying that doesn't fit the mold that I always teach, so let's start fixing the mold or putting you in the mold. Um, that's what I mean. I don't start talking to anybody until I've seen them hit at least 12, 15 shots. That's after they've warmed up, right? And now I've got 12, 15 shots of data. I've seen it. It's on camera. The swing they're showing me is the swing they have. And then we'll start to go through it. But anyway, I would say that is one of the massive red flags. If they don't have a process of when you at least first meet, and if throughout that first meeting, maybe they do have a process, but throughout that meeting, if they haven't shown you a clear path on cause and effect of your results, your ball flight, whatever it is you're working on, and like what it looks like in the coming months to correct those things. If that's not really laid out, or at least at the bare minimum talked about, so that it makes sense to you, that's probably another one where it's like maybe go knock on someone else's door.
I think that's valuable as anything you could get, because one of my biggest things that there always has to be a game plan and end goal. And if you're coming in, they're just like, okay, we're starting over from scratch.
Yeah.
We're gonna break you down completely. Or if they then go, well, this is gonna be a 10 lesson package that you need to get it. They get into more of that salesman aspect of it, without giving you any data of what the goal is gonna be going forward.
Yeah.
That's the biggest red flag you possibly
if
could
they
have.
yeah, if they start throwing around numbers like 10, 15, 20, 30, 40, and again you're 5, 8, 10, 12 minutes in, it's like, whoa, man. And don't get me wrong, I truly believe that everyone needs lessons essentially for a lifetime. And that doesn't mean every week, twice a week, right? It just means like, hey, like golf is really difficult and you can lose it, you can backslide, you can go from a 2 to a 7. And it happens, right? Life happens, and it's really hard to just turn it around on your own. So don't get me wrong, I totally believe in many, many lessons to really chunk it together and create and layer your skills and really dive in. But if someone is throwing around big numbers right away and they haven't proven to you what they would even do with that time, I don't know.
Well, and I think also, finding the right teaching pro, he's also going to teach you how to practice correctly.
That's
I
a good
think
one. Yeah.
that's very underrated when you're trying to, kill that handicap and get it lower and get to a competitive level of being able to compete. Because there's so many guys that just go out to the range and bang balls, and doing it the correct way and focusing in, like you were just talking about, you have a chart that basically puts people in ranges. So it's, if you're a 79 handicap, usually that means ball striking, you're missing greens, you're not getting yourself in position to score well. So by focusing on your practice on that, to where you get to a point where you're now a 5, a 4 handicap, well, now your chart is going to tell you where your practice and your focus should be. And
Yep.
you start rolling all of that in, creating a proper practice, regiment that's going to accelerate your
Yep.
improvement of your game.
Yep. I'm writing a practice manual right now, actually. And it is, yeah, I think I'm glad you brought that up because that honestly didn't pop in my head right away, is how to practice. And you and I both know that's like you can go to any driving range anywhere in the world, and you can guarantee 90% or more of the folks out there. I call it exercising is what I call it. They're just out there moving their body, just hitting balls, and oh, I like that one, or no, I didn't like that one, and now I'm going to
Yeah.
switch clubs now, I think. And we know the short game area looks brand new still. No one's been out there, and it's an epidemic for sure. That's why I'm writing it. That's what got me to. I know there's the ones out there, right? I know there's practice manuals out there, but I got the way I look at it and how I think, and it kind of breaks down the difference between practice and training, two different things. Maybe you know that, maybe you didn't. And that way it'll tell you, hey, if you are working on short game, if you have gone into your data and it says short game is where you need to work, boom, it's got plenty of examples. If you are working on ball striking, plenty of examples of how to practice and train. But as we all said, first step, get your data, understand where you should even put your time in the first place. You might find yourself not on the driving range 4 days a week.
And I'll tell you, if you're practicing on the range correctly, you're never buying anything more than a small bucket.
Yep.
If
Unless you
you're
just
buying
got all
large,
day, yeah.
yeah, you should be able to spend 2 to 3 hours on the range with a small bucket, 30 balls.
Yep.
Because
Depends on what you're working on, but yep.
yeah, because you should never be in rapid fire mode. There should
Nope.
never be the drag and hit situation
Yep.
where you're just dumping the whole bucket into the basket and then just dragging and hitting. Because you're not creating any regularity in your practice when you're not getting into your shot routine.
Right.
And I think that's another thing while people are practicing, practice the way you play on the course.
Yep.
If you're hitting balls in the range and you're not doing your pre-shot routine before every shot, it's not going to translate.
Yep. Yeah, that's perfect. So I'll just be quick, but you know how I said practice and training, how they're different.
Yeah.
So practice is what everybody does pretty much 100% of the time, and what that means is they're working on a change. So hopefully that means you've gone and seen a coach, not just Mr. YouTube coach, but hopefully, and they've given you one thing, maximum of two. Throw in there, maximum of two things. If they give you more than that, tell them to hit the brakes, turbo. And that means, maybe you don't have to do the full routine because you're just there to work on the move. So that's practice. Training is, hey, I think I have that move down. Now it's time to do the pre-shot routine. It's time to select a target, get set, get balanced. Okay. And you are trying to hit whatever. You're trying to hit the 7-iron on the green. That's training, has a result aspect to it. The practicing, that's where everyone's changing. It's necessary if you're going through a swing change. You have to go practice, which means, okay, maybe you get the large bucket instead of the small. Take your time, do rehearsals. That's why a small bucket should still take you an hour and a half, because you should be rehearsing them in the meantime, because you're there to change. But eventually you have to transfer that over to training so that you can start performing with it. And so that's, I think, what you're really talking about right there, in my opinion.
And so I get crazy looks. You had me doing this move where you basically had me go way over on my grip.
Yep.
Not where we were going to end up being, good position here, but we were way over, and you wanted me to really get in and kind of hit inside to out, hit into the trees on the right hand side. And this was because I was extremely over the top. I had this casting issue that we were trying to get rid of. When I would go onto the range and I would practice that, this shows you that most people are not doing what they're supposed to be doing to become better. I would be doing that drill and I'd be hitting these little low dribblers off to the right into the trees in the driving range. People are looking at me like I never
like,
hit a golf
that
ball.
poor soul, he's just starting out.
Yeah, they're looking at me like I'm crazy or I don't know how to play golf. But it's me just, rehearsing the drill and then stepping up and just, doing what I'm supposed to. That really shows you that there's people that play this again as a recreational sport, and that's totally okay.
Absolutely.
And you do you, and if you hitting 120 balls is your exercise, all for you. But
throw some headphones in and go for it.
Yeah, but that's not the way if you're trying to play competitively.
Right.
That's never going to get you there.
Yeah, you are hitting so many golf balls and taking so much longer to get better. It's very backwards, and no one's born with this knowledge, right? So I don't ever look down on someone that just, if you don't know, you don't know. But hopefully they're listening to this podcast, and hopefully they're, selectively watching YouTube to learn some of this stuff. But there's
some good footage out there. I think you can find some good stuff. But it's, again, if you're a novice or you're a person that's been self-taught, it's hard to weed through the bullshit, because you're going to get, again, you don't want to get into a Charles Barkley situation. Like, you can get really bad information on YouTube and steer you down the wrong path. And same with social media. You have a great following on social media. You put up, very short kind of little, if you do this, do this kind of stuff. But you'd be the first person to tell anybody that these are more just like quips of like, if you're going the right way of doing this, these are thoughts that you should have. It's never for anybody to take those and go, oh, well, I'm going to take that move and I'm just going to implement it, and that's going to solve all my problems. It's like,
that's my hope.
Thing, but also to put people, kind of point them in the right direction of, oh, I need to find my own teaching pro too.
That, to be totally honest, that's what my kind of goal was when I first, because to be fully transparent, when I first started Instagram videos, I was really like apprehensive to like put out free information, I was like, man, like, no, I studied, I have grinded my ass off to get good at this. Like, why would I give that away for free? And then I was like, I'm not going to make an hour-long video that describes in depth. I don't have the time and no one's going to watch it anyway.
Yeah.
And so I was like, oh, well, if I can give them something that truly does work, but they're going to at least go try it, and then they're going to come back with questions. And that's what I want. I want to get the conversation going. I want people to talk about this stuff to start spreading more knowledge. So,
well, that's what drew me to contacting you to come see you for the first time.
yeah,
So videos worked. You got
yeah,
me into it.
there you go.
You know,
Absolutely. I'll say this about YouTube real quick before we move on. I think all your listeners, look, YouTube is okay, but there's a huge caveat to that. I tell all my students, you're allowed to watch YouTube, but the caveat is it has to pertain to what we're working on right now, right? Which means you got to go see a coach first and have to say, here's the thing, here's the low hanging fruit. This is what you have to get better at. Whatever, maybe it's weight transfer, whatever it is. So I tell my students, okay, we're working on weight transfer now. You're allowed to go watch videos about weight transfer because you never know what, Joe Schmo down the road is doing. They might say it a little bit differently, this or that, but it's going to get them to transfer weight better. So YouTube is okay. I do believe that probably 90% of it is still very good information, but if it's not the right information for you right now, it'll mess with your golf game.
Yeah.
There's my soapbox.
Don't get lost in the sauce. Don't
Yeah.
look at a million different things and have 500 different thoughts when you're on the range.
Yep.
And again, it's just like with the training and the practice, like it focusing on what you are trying to accomplish at that time.
Yep, exactly. And if you don't, like, the only way you're going to know that for the most part is if you go see somebody.
Yep.
Yep.
And I think the second part, and I think everybody's going to reach a level, and I have preached this soapbox. I don't need to go super into it. You guys all know that I'm a fitter, Jack's a fitter, but your swing and clubs are such a big partnership. And when you get to a certain level, making sure that everything is correctly built for you particularly is so important, because there is no average fit that fits a large group of people. You can piece stuff together until you get into the single digits, and off the rack stuff is going to be just fine for you. But if you're trying to play competitively and get to a certain level, I think pairing a teaching pro, really designing a proper practice regiment for yourself and training regiment, and then also making sure that your equipment is up to the highest standards it possibly can it's the key to being to the level that you want to be at.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because you're competing against guys out there that are going to do that. They're going to spend insane money to have the equipment, and some of those guys might do that without doing the teaching pro thing. But
that's where most of them start, let's be honest.
I've got a lot of customers that have spent a lot of money with me and have $400 equipment swings, but have $6,000 sets of clubs.
Yep.
So, they're Goodwill swings with
There you go.
Japanese sets of clubs.
Yep.
So, you want to equal that level. You want to have that. You want to be able to be on the same competitive plane as everybody. And I'm not saying everybody needs to go out and spend $6,000 to $8,000 on clubs.
Yeah, no.
There are ways to go about it. You can buy a 3 or 4 year old used set of irons that would be in a good set for you. Come in and get retrofitted in the proper shafts, have them built correctly to the swing weight, length, lie, and loft. Make sure those are all dialed in, and save yourself some cash. There's ways of getting there, but you have to make sure that you have a person in your corner that's going to make sure that your equipment is correct for you.
Yeah.
Absolutely. It's super important. I mean, I am a guy that does this for a living, but I know that my equipment can only get me so far without having Andy in my corner to be able to also get my swing where it needs to be. And
absolutely.
that's something me and you are going to have to talk about in the next couple weeks
Yeah, we gotta
because
get you back in the lab.
start gearing up for the season.
Yeah,
So,
but
I'm slacking on that side of things. I've got my gear ready to go for the year,
yeah,
but I need to get the training regimen going, and then something you've been doing,
yeah,
getting the body right,
yeah,
losing
yeah.
some lbs, and
Hmm.
you know getting the mechanics and looseness of where we need to be, where our youth was.
Yeah,
So tell everybody
that's
kind of one of your goals that you're going through this year in your own game.
yeah. So super long term. No, I guess not that long term, but super long term is the professionals national championship. I don't necessarily have the goal to win it just yet because I got a lot of work to do, but to qualify for it and to participate in it because 2026 it's being hosted at Bandon Dunes. So I'm like, oh, that's right down the road. And so I'm like, that's good. I'm giving myself a year and a half because I'm trying to
Oh,
be realistic.
I'm coming out with a camera, and we're gonna document this
Oh,
entire journey of you
yeah,
playing, man.
yeah. I'm gonna need a caddy anyway. So,
Yeah, doing
but
it.
so I'm being as realistic as I can. Right, a year and a half. So all you folks out there that think one golf lesson helps you for that tee time later the same day, no, that's not how it works. A year and a half, and so I know I'm a rather portly fellow myself. Um, football, baseball player, and then stopped moving. Anyway, it doesn't matter. I figure, gosh, I could still carry the ball like 280, 290. It's like, what could I do if I was actually like taking care of myself and got stronger and got, back to a strength that I used to have a long time ago. Um, and use my body a little bit more efficiently. That's where I'm gonna get my own help with my game and use my body a bit more efficiently. But definitely trying to get healthier, lose a few pounds, and I know naturally I'll just get faster. Now I already have decent distance, and I'm getting way better control. Actually, this is a really great time to highlight Mr. Big C over there. I have never felt better with my driver, and what was really cool. This is a little sidebar, by the way. Um, you hit me last year, or no,
Yeah,
2023.
end of 2020.
The TSR 3. When did that come out?
It would have been end of 23.
Yeah, yeah. So got fit by you, and next thing you know, I can actually hit my driver because I'm the type of guy that's like I'm 6 fairways per round, but like 13 greens. So I'm like, if I could just hit more fairways, and that's what you helped with. And so anyway, long story longer, it's get better shape, get stronger because I know I'll hit it further. If I can hit it further, my natural ball striking abilities will take over and be able to shine. Um, and so, and then I know, yeah, when the weather gets better, guess who has to go work on short game? Yeah,
I'm in the same boat.
yeah. So, but yeah, so that's the
Outdoor.
say,
Work on your short game outdoor.
yeah, outdoors. Yeah.
Putting on a putting mat inside your house is not working on short game. Yes, you can work on technique
Hmm.
that way,
Yep, you absolutely
but
can.
reading greens and learning how to play the slopes with chipping and pitching from distances is massively important. I can't stress that enough
No,
because
yeah,
there
you
there
can't.
are plenty of people that think like practicing in the sim, if you're in the Pacific Northwest or the Midwest where it's snowing right now, practicing in the sim, working on technique and things in
Yeah.
the sim. You work in the sim house.
Yep.
You This is what you do. I work with a sim every single
Hmm.
day. Short game is not reflecting correctly in a simulator.
No, and that's why I tell all my students. I'm like, look, I can teach you my system. I have a system for short game wedges, putting. There's a system. I'll teach you the system. You can learn that in the sim, no problem, and it'll show you how it works. But like you said, eventually you have to do it outside. You have to see how the ball is landing, where it's landing and skipping, landing and breaking, not breaking. You you have to go get that in your like internal database. So as soon as the weather is bearable, people get out there, right?
Yes.
If you don't know what you're doing, that's why you come see me. If you're missing a wedge, that's why you go see Chris. Other than that, you have to go do it, and that'll also be in the little practice manual thing. So, but yeah. So anyway, that's my goal. That's my journey, I'm not even thinking until 2026. And I have this little roadmap that I'm going to follow. As far as like, so remember the practice and the training thing?
Yep.
So for we'll see how it goes, but roughly 6 to 8 months will be heavily favored towards practice, which means changing. So changing some of the things I do in my swing to make it a bit more efficient, maybe faster. And then it's not just one, but that's the majority. We'll call it probably 80% of my time will be spent. 20% is training. 20% is like how well can I perform with this move I'm working on. And that same goes for short game as well. And then after that 6 to 8 month mark, that's where I really have to ramp it up, because I'll only have like 6 months left.
Yep.
6 to 8 months left. And if I've already made that much change in 6 to 8 months, I'm not going to count on that same amount of change to happen and all of a sudden just have it on the day, right? That's never going to be the case. And so what I do for 6 to 8 months is I train and I play. Train, remember, means performing. So does the wedge go on the green? Does the driver go in the fairway? Does the 6-foot putt go in the hole? That's all training. So I'm not worried about technique. I'm worried about my target. I'm worried about my process. And so I start to tip the scales from practicing to training. Training starts going way up, and I play a lot more because it's all performance based. So if all goes according to plan, at the time where I need it the most, I will have already been training and playing so much that just waltzing right into another tee time just happens to be at the PNC.
Super valuable there.
Yeah.
And I mean, that's the one thing I think, if you're going through these changes or you're trying to get to that level, you can't have a short-term goal. There is no such thing as a short-term goal in getting to that in golf. It has to be a long-term goal. And my boy Ashton and my boy Hussey, who've been playing the 4-ball, they got a little discouraged with their two kind of outings being DFL in both of their outings there. Yeah. But that was the feedback I had, where it's a learning experience, and that just tells you that you have not put in the work on that level.
Yeah.
Be able to continue to be competitive. It's good to have those reps and to get used to playing competitively, because if you haven't done it, golf is already scary on the first tee, but even more frightening when you're playing people for something or having a meaning to play for.
Mm-hmm. And knowing you have to count every stroke properly and put everything in and take proper drops, and then you're like, oh, these strokes are racking up so fast.
Especially when you play your first round and you play with a guy that knows or is going to be that stickler on every single rule, and you learn how many things you don't know about the golf rule book.
Yeah. Which is okay. It's fine.
Yeah.
Yeah. Right. For the normal recreational golfer, it's fine. We want you to have fun. We want you to go drink beer because we want you to play this game that we love so much.
Yes.
But yeah, remember this. Most of those conversations kind of geared towards, I'm heading towards competition. I'm headed towards a little bit higher level play. It's like most folks would probably shoot somewhere between 3 and 6 shots worse if they truly followed every single rule and putt every ball all the way in every time. Proper drops, out of bounds drops, people, those suck. You have to go back to the tee box.
You do. And when I play with anybody, I don't think it's more speed, pace of play.
100%.
When you're not going back to the tee. But those things you don't realize when you hit it OB off the tee, you're hitting 3 off the tee now, and there goes your entire round. Like one OB can ruin an entire round.
It can. Unless you have the firepower of a +8 handicap, right? That can, randomly just rip 6 birdies in a row, but most of us don't have that capability. So.
Most of us are not Hideki.
Yeah. God, you watch that? I mean, they tear it up every year there, but that was ridiculous.
It was ridiculous. Yeah. But I think if you want to take it one more step, and this is where we'll kind of end it, the route that Andy was hinting at was, I think your physical ability is also going to limit you to a level. And I think that's one thing that I and yourself have realized
Yep.
is, my mobility in my shoulders are ridiculous. Like you've seen my swing, and that was a conversation me and you had,
Mm-hmm.
was my stretching and my mobility in my body is just, I'm so rigid. I
Yep.
don't have the mobility to be able to get certain motions to get more speed out of things. So I'm limiting myself to what I can change in my swing because I can't get into certain positions, which isn't going to help me in a lesson situation.
Right.
But also for me to be able to be more effortless within my swing to create power.
Yep.
And I think that's the thing is you see all these guys just throwing their bodies at it. Well,
Mm-hmm.
that's over time going to create pain and issues with your joints and with your physical ability,
Yep.
because throwing yourself constantly at the ball is going to, one, it's not the accurate way of hitting a golf ball, but
Yep.
you're also just going to injure yourself.
Yeah.
I mean,
Putting so much load and stress on other parts of the body at the wrong time of the swing, and everything gets
I mean,
amplified. And
look at Will Zalatoris. I think he is the best example ever. He was a skinny, scrawny guy. He had to use his entire body
mm-hmm.
to be able to create the power he created to make it to the PGA.
Yep.
And he blew his body up,
Yeah.
like
At
in
in his
his early
20s.
20s.
Yeah.
And so he had to go through surgeries and rehab and go through strength. And he gained 30 pounds.
Was it 30? I thought I heard 20, but 30
20
pounds.
or, yeah, something
Either way.
around there.
Either
I mean,
way.
he gained a substantial amount of weight, but the proper weight so that his body can withstand those movements.
Yep. Yep.
And I think for me and you, being Husky boys, it's
Yeah.
more of we're losing some LBs
I
so
need
that
to lessen
we
my
can be
mass.
more,
Yeah.
yes, lessen the mass. We still want to be big boys, big burly
Yeah.
boys to hit it hard, but
Yep.
being flexible. And so getting to that level, I think if you want to take it even further, finding a physio or finding a coach at a gym specifically for this. But there are plenty of training facilities that tie into just doing golf physical workouts.
Yeah. Well, I think it's
So
been cool. There's a lot of like personal trainers that, for the most part, they're just personal trainers, except for they saw the value in going to get TPI certified 1, 2 and power and this and
yeah,
that. So even though they may not be golfers, they're fully educated on, oh, this is what a golfer should be able to do. And then yes, usually they are golfers because they enjoy the game. That's why they go for the thing. But like those are getting more and more. I've noticed. So you could,
it's another route in the golf industry. There's fitters, there's swing coaches, and now there's starting to be golf physios
mm-hmm.
where you're seeing it on tour, and it's every single
Everyone.
PGA pro
Yep.
has a team of a physio, a swing coach, and I mean a lot of them have mental coaches too if you want
Yep.
to take it to step 4. But
Yep.
they've got their fitters or their club manufacturers.
Yep.
And all of those people are to work to make them the best person they possibly can. And if you want to get to that elite level, and this is more for those guys really trying to play at the USGA qualifier, OGA and like Oregon AM type
Yeah.
situations,
Mm-hmm.
that's the step you're going to need to take, because you and me can only get people to a certain level,
Mm-hmm.
and they will even max out with us. But if you're trying to get to that +5, +6 and better at
Yeah.
that high level, the physio side is,
Yeah. It's
instrumental.
yeah. You have yeah. Not everyone's as fortunate as John Daly.
No,
Yeah. We're not have this insane talent to bypass that. And so like you were talking about earlier, it's like if that's what the rest of the field is doing, you have to make it an even playing field for yourself and do that stuff as well.
yeah,
Yeah, again, that's what I'd say for the elite to make it, like mandatory to go do some physio stuff. But I have a lot of players that are, mid 15 handicaps that are seeing someone because they just want to feel better while they play. Um, not be aches and pains on the fourth hole and for the rest of the day and the next 2 days after. So it's the real deal. That's why I'm starting it. And Yeah, I'd say so. I guess if we recapped this, it's like step one is figure out where you're at. That means get some statistics on your game. The bare minimum is like fairways, greens, putts, ups and downs. That's like the bare minimum. Something like Arcos is really good. It dives way deeper in, but you also then see a coach. Okay, I want to be here, but I am here. If you have a good coach, they'll kind of lay out the actual plan that makes sense on how to get there. And then what happens with a lot of my students is we'll start to chug along that plan. I'll start to notice that their swing is getting to be right where I want it. The numbers I'm seeing are getting to be right where they want it, but the ball's not going where it's supposed to go. That's when I'm like, go see Chris. When I can see the swing repeat for the most part and numerically looks good on the data and on video, and maybe a solid strike, but it's high left, low right, spinny, no spin, whatever it is. I look at their equipment and I know this much about club fitting. I did that on purpose so Chris could have a job. You know, I it's not for me. Club fitting is just not for me. But that's why I'm so happy I met you, and I feel so comfortable sending any skill level player to you. And I know that you're not just, oh yeah, you're coming in. What's the most expensive thing on the rack, and that's what you're going to need. It's like, no, you have a process as well, and I was able to witness it firsthand. But I think that's a great progression for someone who's like, no, I want to go compete, even if it's competing at an 8 handicap. Like there's competitions you can enter, and go beat your flight, go take first place in your flight.
But start somewhere. I think that's the thing. You need to start getting your competitive juices flowing. So even if you're an 8 handicap and you're building to be able to compete at an amateur level, which means you do not get a handicap, you have to be a 3 handicap or better. That's Oregon AMs. That is your OGA 4 balls. Those kind of tournaments does require you to be a 3 handicap or better. But there are so many tournaments out there. Northwest Golf Guys here locally.
Yeah.
Great tournaments for somebody just trying to understand how to play competitively. Because that's the other thing. When you get to that level of trying to play, at the zero scratch kind of type of tournaments, and you don't know the rules of how to play in tournament golf, there's going to be guys you're going to play with that are going to call you on everything, and they'll get you disqualified from a tournament.
Mm-hmm.
If you're blatantly not, even if it's just honest mistakes, it doesn't matter. Like
you'll incur the penalty.
Yeah, they will incur every penalty possible on you. So getting your bearings and playing in those style of tournaments, or at your local club, joining the local, your local men's group and playing in their monthly tournaments, anything like that to get your competitive juices flowing that works your way to playing in a very competitive level, I think is the smartest thing you possibly could do.
Go take DFL a couple times just to see what it's like. What's the sign up process like? How much time do I get to warm up? Is it unlimited? Do I get an hour? What is it? What do I do with my scorecard? I know a lot of people don't know that you don't hang on to your scorecard during a tournament.
You trade scorecard. Each other scorecards at the end when it's accurate.
Yep. Stuff like that. Just go through the motions, and then you can do all this at the same time. You could come to me and say, look, I just played my first tournament to DFL, but here's what I learned. Boom, that's useful information for me.
Yeah. You need to, I think all of these things tied into one will get people to the level that they want to play. But I think the misconception of being able to do it yourself, or being able to search for the equipment just because Callaway told you that their new Elite driver is the best driver that's ever been made and it's the easiest driver, doesn't matter. Making sure it's the correct thing and making sure you're going down the right path with people like us. And we're not saying you have to go to me and Andy. Andy will be the first person to tell you there's plenty of great people out there. If you're not in our area, we got a boy that flies in from Indy, or flies in from Memphis.
Yeah.
He's the best, and he's worked with both of us. And Tobin is the guy, and he's gonna fly in to only see Andy because he trusts Andy and what they have done and they've created the relationship there. I don't want everybody to find somebody in a different state and travel to get
not, yeah.
Do your research. Go in and chat with the PGA pro. I tell people this all the time when they're skeptical. When I tell them about Andy, I'm like, just walk into X Golf and ask him if you got a few minutes to chat.
Yeah.
Because you want to make sure that your goals match up and you guys are at the same level. Because for you to do your job at the highest level possible, they have to understand what you're teaching them, and your goals have to align.
Yep. Absolutely.
And so if you come across a guy where you're just not comprehending what he's teaching,
yep,
it's time to find another person.
Yeah, there's another option,
Yeah.
Definitely from the coach's perspective too. It's like I do pride myself in being able to coach anybody, because I've worked really hard to be able to say the same thing 100 different ways. But eventually you're going to hit a roadblock. If you're just not, we're not speaking the same language, it's okay. There's a ton of coaches around.
I mean, Ashton went to Brad Merrick. So I don't know if you know who Brad Merrick is.
How do I know that name? Is that down in
so he's at Carica Park in Alameda by Oakland.
Yeah.
You probably know him because he was wearing that. He actually played in the U.S. Open 4 years ago.
Okay.
He qualified for the U.S. Open. He had this really crazy hat, and he had like this insane warm-up practice thing that he did at the range, and he became like viral for it.
That's why it's familiar. Okay.
So Ashton goes, this guy's got to be great. He's made the U.S., he made it. And there's no hate on him. He is probably a fantastic coach. But Ashton bought a 3-pack from him, went and saw him, could never get in to see him. Like, the guy, after he was at the U.S. Open, literally got swamped with people trying to come see him. When Ashton would see him, it felt like he was kind of just trying to rush through sessions to get the next guy in.
Yeah, that's a bummer.
And it wasn't clicking for Ashton. So then he found Kevin Pauly, another PGA pro that runs the golf spot just outside of Oakland as well.
Okay.
And Kevin has been amazing for Ashton. Cool. Like it has been a perfect partnership. He's been seeing him for a year and a half. He's gone from a 5 to a 2.
Nice.
And it has been wonderful, but that's because Ashton did it the right way. He got out at the right time. He didn't try to keep going back to someone because he started something and thought he needed to finish it with them. If it's not clicking, move on.
Right.
Because you're just going to waste each other's time and you're going to get nowhere, and then you're going to have a bad taste in your mouth for somebody, but it might not be that he's a bad coach. It could just be that
just style
not good for you.
Right.
So that would be my big thing when you're reaching out to a coach or you're going that route. Make sure you're getting the right person in there. You're following the right paths, and you're getting the right equipment in your bag. And then if you want to take a step further, physio's the way to go.
Fitness style, yep.
Yeah. Well, that's kind of our spiel, guys. I wanted to kind of give everybody kind of an episode on if you're going to be playing competitively. I also wanted to introduce Andy, my coach. I've been wanting to have him on for a while. If you're in the Pacific Northwest, please reach out to Andy if you need any coaching. He's at X Golf in Tualatin. You can reach him at just Andy Morris at xgolftualatin.com.
Andy.Morris is my email at xgolftualatin.com.
There we go.
Or always hit me up on Instagram. That's fine as well.
Instagram, and your Instagram is just Andy Morris Golf.
Correct. Yep. No dots or anything. Just Andy Morris Golf.
No dot. So look him up, and his videos are funny as shit. So if you just want,
I need to bring Chaz back. It's been a while.
He's got an alter ego named Chaz. He's the 28 handicap that you hate coming across when you play as a single.
Yep.
It's hilarious.
He might make an appearance pretty soon. We'll see.
We got to bring Chaz back. But check him out. Follow him. If you're in the area, please see him. Me and Brian cannot, say anything more glowing than we have about Andy. So, but
appreciate you.
In all, go see a teaching pro.
Yes.
Cool. All right, buddy. Thanks for coming on.
Yeah, man. Had a blast. Thank you.